Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Today on ABC News Live, President Biden welcomes French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House. He's here for the Biden administration's first state dinner. What their meeting could mean for the war in Ukraine. The race to avert a national rail strike. The Senate is expected to vote to force workers to accept a deal. What we're learning about who is not on board. Gas prices are plunging. The latest numbers and what it could mean for the job market and your money. But we begin with President Biden welcoming French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House ahead of the Biden administration's first state dinner. Ahead of that meeting, President Macron told our George Stephanopoulos that while the two countries are in sync on some things, they are on different pages on others. Let's listen.
Because I think we're perfectly working closely together when we speak about war, when we speak about Ukraine, when we speak about geopolitics. But when you look at the situation after February this year, gas, energy prices are skyrocketing in Europe because we are buyers and not producers.
Americans think they're skyrocketing here, too.
But the situation is very different.
ABC's Elizabeth Schulze joins me now for more on this. Elizabeth, what's the goal of tonight's dinner and this day, really? Is it just to have some FaceTime and bolster the relationship, or are Biden and Macron looking to come out with specific accomplishments, deliverables, if you will?
A little bit of both, Diane. The real purpose is to show this united front between the U.S. and France to reinforce that relationship. President Biden says France is America's oldest ally and that relationship is as strong as ever, especially in light of some of these conflicts that they are taking on together, like the war in Ukraine. That said, there are some key issues that they want to discuss. What is the path forward when it comes to Ukraine? There are some boiling tensions when it comes to concerns about China. And ultimately, the question is, will they walk away with some action going into the winter? We know that's going to be a tough time. When you heard President Macron there talking about the energy crisis, there are some disagreements on some of President Biden's own policy initiatives. So while this is a pomp and circumstance day at the White House, a lot of festivities when it comes to this official ceremony, the return of the state dinner here after 2 years of the pandemic, there are some underlying issues that they do need to discuss on the policy front, no doubt about it.
Now, one of the issues they're expected to discuss is the war in Ukraine. Macron and Biden's partnership is key here. And in that interview with George, Macron said that he'll also speak with Putin after his meeting with Biden. So how careful and strategic does President Biden need to be in this conversation?
Absolutely. One of the questions is President Biden going to have a message that President Macron would then take to Putin in this conversation that Macron has said he will have in the coming days? We know that Macron has sort of emerged as almost an intermediary here. He has been one to call for peace talks with Ukraine. He says there should be a peaceful solution here. And that has come with a little bit of hesitation from other allies, including the U.S., who say they don't want to give in to any of President Putin's demands. So it's a fine line for the president to walk in saying that he's open to that discussion with President Macron, who's really taken on this type of leadership role there, but also making sure that the U.S. does not give in and does not give in to any of the demands from President Putin when it comes to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Now, one of the thornier issues they have to deal with is President Macron's issues with President Biden's key climate change initiative, the Inflation Reduction Act. He's called elements of it protectionist. Is there a potential for resolution there?
You know, one of the questions is if President Biden will give in, admit that perhaps this could hurt some of those European countries like they're claiming. So what we're talking about here is that Inflation Reduction Act, it has hundreds of billions of dollars, and many of those are subsidies for American companies when it comes to producing products here, renewable energy sources, electric vehicles. What European countries say is that this gives those American companies an unfair advantage because they're getting subsidized in a way that multinationals based in Europe aren't. So President Biden is going to have a hard time admitting that because he's really made this such a priority. He's touted this act as a legislative victory. We'll have to see if he gives in at all to President Macron there, Diane.
All right, Elizabeth Schulze at the White House for us. Thank you. And President Biden is now meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in the Oval Office ahead of tonight's state's dinner. Let's watch.
G7, the G20, and say that President Macron and I have stood together since we've worked together. G7 meetings, the G20, and France is an incredibly valued ally. And I know it sounds like hyperbole, but from the Revolutionary War to the World Wars to today, we've been locked at the hip in all what we've been doing. And Our efforts are continuing at NATO, the G7, the G20, and there's a lot going on. As I constantly am probably boring Manuel with, we are a real inflection point. Things are changing rapidly, really rapidly, and it's really important that we stay in close communication. It doesn't mean that every single solitary thing we agree on, but it does mean we agree on almost everything. We're working together to strengthen the security and prosperity across the Atlantic in each of our countries, but also Europe as a whole. Manuel is not just the leader of France, he's one of the leaders of Europe. He's been very outspoken and he has been very, very commanding in Europe. And this morning we're going to discuss our cooperation on all the issues from high-tech commerce to defense to cyber to space to a whole range of issues that are on both of our agendas. Mr. President, I look forward to our conversation today. I know you've had some good conversations already with some of our senior administration officials, and I look forward to today. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear Joe. Let me first say that I'm extremely happy and honored to be here for the first state visit of your administration, and this is, for me, the best evidence of this indeed very long-term friendship and partnership. And this is exactly the basis of our relation. We will discuss about a lot of topics, but obviously we are together in challenging times globally, and with the war in Ukraine launched by Russia, and so obviously it will be the first topic of discussion for both of us. And since the very beginning of this war, we worked very hard together in order to help Ukraine to resist and to be resilient, and we will reinforce this action. But what we want to do as well, and I want really to pay tribute to a lot of statements you made, we want to build peace, and sustainable peace means full respect of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, but at the same time a new architecture to be sure that we have a sustainable peace on the long run. And we are very much committed on this issue. We will discuss about as well energy, economy, space, nuclear, and I spoke about this synchronization, and I think this is extremely important precisely to have close coordination between us on these different issues, because we want to fix the direct and indirect consequences of the war on our economies and our people, but at the same time we want to prepare for future generations. A carbon neutral economy, creating a lot of jobs, which means investing a lot in our economies, and we have to synchronize our action on this issue, and it will be an important topic of discussion. Beyond that, we will discuss climate change and biodiversity and the common actions in this field, health, and a lot of global topics where our alliance is so critical. But let me once again thank you and your wife for the wonderful dinner we had yesterday, for the friendship, and really for the quality of the discussion we have together, and the common action and the common decisions we take in these so difficult times. Because I think when we look at our common history, this friendship always prevailed, with quite good results, by the way.
Yes.
So we will prevail.
Folks, hold on. You know we are going to do a press conference. So we'll answer your questions at the press conference, and that's going to be shortly. I don't know how shortly, but shortly. Okay?
Can we ask one quick question?
There's President Biden meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in the Oval Office ahead of tonight's state dinner. It will be the first state dinner of the Biden administration after the tradition was put on hold for years due to COVID restrictions. The two said there that they expect to discuss a range of topics from technology, commerce, space exploration, but they'll be also expected to discuss situations like the war in Ukraine and how to deal with China. We, of course, will be following it all closely for you. Meanwhile, Congress is racing to avert a rail strike. A shutdown could cripple the economy and supply chains ahead of the holidays. Now the House has voted to impose a settlement, setting the stage for a critical vote in the Senate. ABC's Jay O'Brien joins me live from Capitol Hill with more on that. Jay, how much support is there in the Senate? Because they're considering essentially two measures, one to force a deal, but then another to grant workers the paid sick leave they're asking for, which in many ways is what was holding up the deal.
Exactly right, Diane. So they're talking about two bills here. One of those, the paid sick leave bill, originated in the House, and it's essentially an addendum to that earlier agreement. It would give rail workers an extra 7 days of paid sick leave. So again, two bills. One that would break any potential strike, obviously avert a potential strike, and then another that would give rail workers those extra sick days. There is a sense that obviously that first bill that would avert a potential strike has a little bit more of a broader base of support than the second. There is expected to be in a vote later today. The proof will be in the pudding when that vote comes to pass, but there is significant opposition, particularly amongst some about adding those extra sick days.
All right, Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill for us. Thank you. And gas prices are plunging in the United States following a rally on Wall Street. Stocks soared yesterday up 737 points after reassuring comments from the Federal Reserve. Chief Business Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis is on Wall Street with the latest. Hi, Rebecca.
The trees are up here on Wall Street, and the price of gasoline is coming down. The national average now $3.47. And according to Gas Buddy, in a month, we could be celebrating not only Christmas, but gasoline prices below $3 a gallon. Now, fuel is one piece of the inflation pie. It's an important piece. Other prices have also started to come down, and that is why the Federal Reserve is signaling slower rate hikes ahead. While you'll still continue to see things like mortgages, credit cards, new car loans get more expensive, they won't get more expensive as quickly as they have been. Still keep in mind the national average for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage now 7.3%. That is double where it was this time last year. Interest rates on credit cards, the average 22%. So if you are racking up credit card debt over this holiday season, you're going to pay a lot more for that if you're not paying those bills off on time. It's something to really think twice about before you throw that plastic down to pay for holiday gifts. Give yourself the gift of peace of mind, financial peace of mind, by not doing so. And then finally, there's this jobs picture. So far, we've had a very vibrant, robust jobs market, more job openings than job seekers. Tomorrow, we'll get a new report from the Department of Labor on jobs. It is expected to show 200,000 jobs created in the month of November. That's strong by historical standards, but it's less than what we've been seeing recently. It means that the jobs picture is starting to slow down a bit, which is exactly what the Federal Reserve wants to see in order to really slow inflation down. Diane?
All right, Rebecca Jarvis, thank you. Coming up on this World AIDS Day, we'll talk to one of the first people to speak publicly about using medications to protect himself from potential infection. What he says everyone should know when we come back. Welcome back. On this World AIDS Day, health departments around the country are raising awareness about HIV treatment and prevention, including so-called PrEP medications. According to HIV.gov, approximately 1.2 million people in the U.S. are living with HIV. But the CDC says PrEP drugs can now reduce the risk of infection by 99% when taken daily. Damon Jacobs was one of the first people to speak publicly about using these medications to protect himself from potential infection. Now he's sharing his story with ABC News Live as part of our new special, Viral, A World Without AIDS. Take a look.
Taking PrEP every day to prevent HIV for 11 years has been an act of self-love. It is a power that I did not have for the first 20-plus years of my sexual life, when so much of my experience day to day was determined by losing people to HIV and AIDS, as well as the fear of getting it myself. The first time I started taking PrEP was the first time that I said, I now have full control over what happens to my body. I have full control over whether I get HIV or not, which is not something I ever had. So I started using this on July 19th, 2011, and have been taking it daily ever since. And there we go. It's as easy as that. Now I'm protected from HIV today, no matter what happens.
You're good for the day.
I'm good for the day.
And Damon, now an HIV prevention specialist, joins me live with more on this. Damon, I want to take a step back because you were in your early 20s living in San Francisco at the time of the AIDS epidemic. What was that like?
That was a time when AIDS was ravishing our community and when knowing people with AIDS meant losing people to AIDS. And I lost roommates, lovers, friends, colleagues, clients, just people you see on the street one day and then you don't see the next. That was such a regular part of living in San Francisco throughout the 1990s.
So when you look at where we were then and where we are now, one, how important is detecting HIV early? And what misconceptions do you think people have about the virus today?
Well, the miracle of where we're at today is that living with HIV is no longer a death sentence. That the earlier we can detect HIV, the earlier we can treat HIV. And that when someone's on medications for HIV, they cannot transmit HIV to another person. When they're undetectable, they're untransmittable, and their lives are saved. Their life expectancy is no longer less than someone without HIV when they get treated early. That is the miracle of where we're at. I think the misunderstanding and misperception is that HIV is still a death sentence, that it still results automatically in dying early or having a significantly less quality of life. And that is no longer the case.
Now, you talk a lot about PrEP meds as the way that you protect yourself. We just saw you demonstrate. I know that you said you haven't taken your pill today, so I know you want to demonstrate for us. What surprised you when you started with this daily habit and when you learned yourself about PrEP drugs?
When I learned about PrEP in 2010, I wasn't initially sure if that was going to be the right course for me, but I really thought about it and I learned about it. 99% from taking a pill, I could protect my body by 99% or greater by taking a pill every day. I'm like, yeah, I think this is right for me. So I started using this on July 19th, 2011, and have been using it daily ever since. May I show you?
Please.
Okay. Ta-da! I'm protected from HIV today. Yay!
Now,
So that, to me, just makes the most sense in terms of preventing HIV at this stage.
And it seems like it's super easy for you, but we know that PrEP drugs also come in an injectable form. Those sometimes are more effective for treating larger areas, children, for example, who are exposed and so on, because you don't have to take a daily pill. But these drugs aren't always so accessible to everyone. Just the other day, yesterday, Doctors Without Borders put out an alert asking a pharmaceutical company to make these drugs more affordable, more accessible so they can help. So what do you think more needs to be done on that front to help prevent HIV around the world?
I think, yes, we do need affordable drugs. Now, this is generic. So the drug that I used to take, which was on brand, is now generic. So it's only about $30 a bottle, and that price is coming down. We do need affordable prices for the injections and for the other pills that are available. We do have a toolkit of options for PrEP. But I think what really needs to change is a shift in our thinking about sexual health and HIV prevention. There's still a stigma. There's still a shaming around those of us that choose to have active, healthy sex lives without condoms. And as long as there's a shame and there's a stigma attached to it, people are going to be less likely to want to use PrEP to prevent HIV.
And of course, anyone who takes a drug should talk to their doctor first before starting on that. And there are side effects that could come with PrEP, just like with any medication.
You want to know the side effects I've had? The best sex of my life for the last 11 years. But true, we do always want to be aware of the potential side effects, which is why I see my doctor at least once a year to make sure my kidneys are working, my cholesterol is fine. That's actually a smart thing to do in my life anyway. That's a smart thing for everybody to do. But because of PrEP, I'm making sure I'm getting regular screenings with my provider.
Well, Damon, thank you. One of many options that people should look into and explore to protect themselves against
I sure
HIV.
hope they do. So to be proactive, responsible, empowered about their pleasure, this is the best way to do it.
Damon, thank you.
Thank you.
And tune into our ABC News Live special tonight, Viral, A World Without AIDS. It shares the stories of loved ones lost, the potentially life-saving medical treatments now available, and the stars who helped break the stigma. That's right here tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and streaming tomorrow on Hulu. Coming up, the crew for SpaceX's next all-civilian mission is adding a new kind of training to prepare for liftoff. We'll talk to some of them when we come back live. Welcome back. The crew for SpaceX's next all-civilian space mission is gearing up for their 5-day space flight in March. In addition to their G-force, underwater, and emergency training, the group is taking on a new angle of endurance training, participating in the St. Jude Memphis Marathon this Saturday. The Polaris Dawn crew will join some 26,000 runners on the course. And Polaris Dawn mission specialists Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon are joining me now, along with Rick Shadyac Jr., the CEO of ALSAC, the funding and awareness organization of St. Jude Children's Research Center. They all join me now for more. Thank you all for being here. Sarah, I want to start with you. You're going to be running the 10K and the half marathon. Why do this as part of your training?
You know, this is such an amazing organization that we're partnering with in this mission, and having the opportunity to see these families, run with the cancer survivors and their families, and really engage at a deeper level is going to be super meaningful as part of our training.
Now, Anna, your training also includes things like zero gravity research, flights, fighter jet training. The Polaris Dawn crew is even set to perform the first commercial spacewalk. So how has it been doing all that training in addition to training for the marathon?
You know, I think it's been really additive. I think that all of these different pieces really build upon each other. We learn the technical skills. With SpaceX, we learn to work together, and then we have to employ all of the physical endurance that we are learning through doing this marathon to really perform well at this spacewalk that we'll do.
Now, Rick, at the marathon, you will cross the finish line about a dozen times, running the final, I should say, with multiple patients' families. What does this race mean to you?
Been incredibly special over the 13 years that I've had the privilege of leading this organization, to see kids that have battled childhood cancer, successfully battled it, and then they're out there competing in an endurance race. And to see the emotion, it's pure emotion of accomplishment, of knowing that they've kicked cancer. So it's really, really special. And they're super excited about the 4 crew members coming out and running with them as well.
So, Sarah, what's your advice to kids right now watching, looking up to you, and those St. Jude's kids that you meet at the hospital? What's your advice to them watching you this weekend in the race, and then also when you head into space next year?
Gosh, you know, when I was a little girl growing up in Colorado, I don't think I could have imagined this future, and I don't think I could have envisioned what was coming. So I think more than anything, to all those little girls out there, I really hope that they're able to see something that they didn't think was possible in us, and to reach to do stuff that they didn't think was possible, both in running this marathon as well as in life in general.
And Anna, same question to you.
Yeah, you know, I think the message that stands out to me is hope. I think that really, like Sarah was saying, this is, you know, what we're living, and really, even for me, running a half marathon, it's not something that I imagined I would be doing and capable of doing. And so I think, you know, dream big and have hope. And I think, you know, really beautiful things can transpire in your future.
Sarah Gillis, Anna Menon, Rick Shadyac, thank you all for your time today.
Thank you so much.
We will be watching and rooting for you next year. And thank you for joining us. I'm Diane Macedo. Do stay with us as ABC News Live continues with more news, context, and analysis.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.